It was just ridiculous. It's not often that you're watching the WNBA or that I'm watching it and I'm like, wow, I've just never seen this before.
200,000 fans just declared war on the WNBA, and Commissioner Kathy Engelbert walked straight out of her own office like a scared child. This is not a drill. This is not some Twitter drama that disappears in a week. This is the biggest fan uprising in sports history, and it is happening right now. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. The boycott started because Engelbert decided to threaten the one player who saved her entire league. Caitlin Clark, the woman who brought millions of eyeballs to women's basketball, got a warning from the commissioner herself. The message was crystal clear: stop playing golf, stop doing outside events, or face suspension. Think about that for a second. The WNBA found its golden goose, and instead of protecting her, they tried to clip her wings. Clark brought record viewership numbers that made executives rich. She filled arenas that used to echo with empty seats. She created buzz that turned casual sports fans into WNBA diehards. And what did the league do in return? They told her she could not live her life. The leaked group chat messages spread faster than wildfire across social media. Players could not believe what they were reading. Fans went from confused to furious in about 30 seconds.
As for what Engelbert is alleged to have said to Collier, if she actually suggested Caitlin Clark should be grateful for what she makes off the court, that's preposterous. Did you miss the Iowa years? Clark is the Tiger Woods tide that lifts all boats, and we know this show is proof. The highest rating we have ever had followed one of her games at Iowa. The WNBA has benefited from her presence more than the other way around, even though this year for Caitlin Clark was essentially lost to injury.
The woman who elevated their favorite league was being treated worse than a problem child. Not only that, but Engelbert did not stop with Clark. She went after Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull too. Three of the most beloved players in the league suddenly found themselves in the crosshairs of their own commissioner. The threats were not subtle either. Suspensions, benchings, and even contract termination got thrown around in conversations. Clark stared at her phone and asked teammates a question that broke hearts across America. We cannot even play golf. We cannot even have lives. Let me paint you the picture of what happened next. Within hours of those messages going public, fan accounts started organizing. Reddit threads exploded with thousands of comments. Instagram stories spread the news to millions of followers. TikTok videos racked up views faster than anyone could count. One single tweet demanding justice for Clark got 1.2 million views in 12 hours. The message was simple and powerful: suspend Caitlin and we suspend the WNBA. Fans were not asking for change anymore. They were demanding it. But wait, it gets even crazier. These were not just angry keyboard warriors making empty threats. Families started pulling season ticket orders. Kids asked parents to cancel WNBA merchandise purchases. Friend groups made pacts to skip games entirely until Engelbert fixed the mess she created. The boycott number climbed from thousands to tens of thousands to six figures in less than 2 days.
The high tide lifts all boats or whatever. Basically, like, if you buy into this, everybody is going to eat. Yet you had people fighting tooth and nail the entire season, not wanting it to be this way because other people weren't getting flowers, or she was getting too much attention, or she gets a special whistle, or I'm gonna check her off the ball here just because. And then her teammate cheers for her for throwing her on the ground. It didn't get better. And it's disappointing to me because it's not every player in the WNBA. And I'm sure that there are many players who are happy to have her in the league. And it's like, if it was my league and somebody was coming in and bringing millions of people, like, I would be excited about that, because you know what? That's a chance for me to impress millions of people who weren't watching before. And there's a lot of women in this league who don't have that kind of envy and jealousy and this kind of like secret club mentality.
200,000 verified signatures appeared on boycott petitions for the 2026 season. Real names, real emails, real fans walking away from the sport they loved because leadership failed them completely. Here's where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Those leaked group chat messages revealed something way worse than just golf restrictions. Engelbert had been watching Clark's every move for months. Every charity event, every sponsor appearance, every single activity outside of basketball became a potential problem in the commissioner's mind. The messages showed Engelbert telling Clark she needed to be grateful for what she makes off the court. Read that again slowly. The woman who turned the WNBA from a financial drain into a profitable business got lectured lectured about gratitude by the person who should have been thanking her daily. But that's not even the most ridiculous part. Clark's teammates Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull received their own special warnings. The commissioner's office made it crystal clear that supporting Clark's rebellious behavior would result in serious consequences. 3 players who brought nothing but positive attention to the league suddenly became targets. Let's take a moment to rewind and remember what Clark actually accomplished. Her college games at Iowa drew higher ratings than most NBA playoffs. Her WNBA debut broke attendance records in multiple cities. Merchandise sales skyrocketed wherever she played. She was literally the tide that lifted all boats, exactly what struggling leagues dream about finding. Yet Engelbert saw success and decided it needed to be controlled instead of celebrated. The leaked conversations revealed a commissioner who felt threatened by her own star players' popularity. Clark was getting too much attention, making too much money, and living too freely for leadership's comfort. And here's the kicker: the golf restriction was not about scheduling conflicts or injury risks. Internal sources revealed it stemmed from jealousy within the league office. Clark's golf partnerships were bringing in serious money and creating relationships with powerful sponsors. Some executives worried she was becoming bigger than the WNBA itself.
Holding the players back from saying, yes, we agreed to an extension, let's try to iron out this deal so there is no lockout. Right? They'll still be able to negotiate if there's a lockout. However, players won't be able to head to the facility. They won't be able to get treatment. They won't be able to train with the team, with the staff. So there is some things to lose if there is a lockout. Sources: WNBA offers players extension on CBA deadline. The WNBA has offered players a 30-day extension to continue negotiations for a new collective bargaining agreement, sources told ESPN on Tuesday. An extension before the current CBA expires Friday would allow both sides more time to negotiate a new deal.
Which raises some sensitivities of rivalries between players. In the case of Angel Reese, who's just had to shut it down because of a wrist injury, Caitlin Clark, who's continuing to play. Rivalry that goes back to their college days, presumably, where I guess some trash talking entered in. But now it seems on some social media channels to have taken a darker turn, a more menacing turn, where race has been introduced into the conversation, where sexuality is sometimes introduced into the conversation. How do you try and stay ahead of that? Try and tamp it down or act as a league when 2 of your most visible players are involved, not personally, it would seem, but their fan bases are involved.
Sophie and Lexi refused to abandon their teammate when the threats intensified. They made a pact that shook the entire organization. If they suspend you, we walk too. 3 of the league's brightest stars suddenly stood united against their own commissioner. Not only that, but other players started speaking up privately. Veterans who usually stayed quiet began questioning why their most valuable teammate was being treated worse than players with actual disciplinary problems. Locker room conversations turned tense as athletes realized their own freedoms might be next on the chopping block. The fan reaction to these revelations was swift and brutal. Social media exploded with stories about fake fouls against Clark throughout the season. Videos resurfaced showing questionable referee calls that seemed designed to limit her impact. Fans connected dots between on-court targeting and off-court threats from leadership. But here's what really pushed people over the edge. The leaked messages showed Engelbert discussing ways to manage Clark's brand without her input. The commissioner was essentially planning to control a player's entire career outside of basketball. That level of overreach crossed every line that professional sports fans recognize. The boycott signatures doubled overnight as these details spread across every platform. 200,000 became 400,000 in less than 24 hours. Then the financial earthquake hit. Sponsors who had been quietly watching the drama suddenly realized their money was tied to a league at war with its own fans. Nike, Gatorade, and dozens of other major brands started making emergency phone calls to WNBA headquarters. The message was identical from every company: fix this mess or lose our contracts. But wait, there's more. A Nike executive reportedly told Engelbert's office that threatening Clark was like burning money in front of shareholders. The Rookie of the Year had single-handedly boosted women's basketball merchandise sales by over 300%. Her jersey outsold entire team catalogs combined. Sponsors were not about to lose that gold mine because of commissioner ego trips. Here's where it gets absolutely wild. Gatorade pulled their upcoming WNBA campaign within hours of the boycott announcement. A spokesperson said the brand could not support a league that restricts athlete partnerships and personal freedom. Translation: they were not paying millions to advertise in a toxic environment that fans were actively rejecting. The sponsor exodus created a domino effect that terrified league executives. Companies began freezing payments on existing contracts pending resolution of current leadership issues. Others demanded meetings to reassess partnership viability in corporate speak. That meant they were preparing to bail completely. Let me break down the numbers that made executives panic. Clark's social media post generated more engagement than the entire WNBA official account. Her golf content alone brought in millions of impressions that sponsors desperately wanted access to. Engelbert's restrictions were essentially cutting off the league's most valuable marketing pipeline. And then came the phone calls that changed everything. A major television network contacted league headquarters to express serious concerns about ratings projections for 2026. Without Clark playing freely and fans boycotting games, viewership numbers would crater back to pre-Caitlyn levels. Ad revenue would disappear overnight. But here's the part that really shows how badly Engelbert miscalculated. Local businesses in WNBA markets started reporting canceled catering orders for watch parties. Season ticket holders were demanding refunds even though the 2026 season was still months away. The economic impact was spreading beyond just league sponsors into entire communities. Regional sports networks that had invested heavily in women's basketball coverage began questioning their commitments. One executive said broadcasting games to empty arenas while fans boycotted would be financial suicide. The ripple effects were reaching every corner of the basketball business ecosystem. Not only that, but international partners started voicing concerns about expanding WNBA presence overseas. European broadcasters had been excited about Clark's global appeal, bringing new audiences to women's sports. The boycott threatened those expansion plans before they could even begin. Corporate lawyers began reviewing sponsorship contracts looking for escape clauses related to league conduct and fan engagement metrics. Companies that had signed multi-year deals were exploring ways to reduce their financial exposure if the crisis continued. Then came the call that sent shockwaves through the entire organization. A Fortune 500 sponsor representative told Engelbert directly, "This is not a league problem. This is a Kathy problem." The message was crystal clear: fix your leadership or lose our money forever. That's when NBA Commissioner Adam Silver decided he had seen enough. The man who oversees the most successful basketball league in the world walked into WNBA headquarters and delivered a reality check that shook the entire building. Sources described his entrance as legendary frustration mixed with corporate anger that could melt steel. Silver slammed a binder full of financial reports on Engelbert's desk and said exactly what everyone was thinking: fix this or step down. The room went completely silent. Engelbert's face turned white as she realized her boss had just delivered an ultimatum in front of her entire staff. But here's what makes this confrontation absolutely epic. Silver did not waste time with corporate politeness or diplomatic language. He asked Engelbert direct questions that cut straight to the heart of her terrible decisions. Why are you threatening players for living their lives? Why are you targeting Caitlyn? Why are you warning her teammates? Engelbert tried mumbling excuses about league image and player conduct standards, but Silver was not buying any of it. He had the numbers right there in black and white. Clark brought more revenue to women's basketball than any player in history. Threatening her was like threatening the league's own financial future. And then came the moment that everyone will remember forever. Silver told Engelbert with zero room for interpretation, "You are not stopping golf. You are not suspending anyone. You are not firing anyone." The most powerful man in professional basketball just overruled the WNBA commissioner in her own office. Let me paint you the picture of what happened next. An assistant commissioner whispered something urgent in Silver's ear. Whatever she said made him stand up, shake his head in disbelief, and walk straight out of the meeting. No handshakes, no closing remarks, just pure disappointment with leadership that had lost complete control. The WNBA office descended into absolute chaos after Silver left. Employees were crying at their desks as phone calls poured in from angry sponsors, confused media members, and panicked team owners. The boycott numbers kept climbing on every computer screen, reminding everyone that their jobs depended on fan support that was evaporating in real time. Not only that, but Engelbert locked herself in her office and refused to speak with anyone. Her assistant had to field calls from team owners demanding explanations for the crisis. Board members started asking questions about leadership changes and emergency succession succession plans. Here's where the story gets even more unbelievable. League executives began holding secret meetings about damage control strategies. Some suggested forcing Engelbert to publicly apologize to Clark, Sophie, and Lexi. Others pushed for immediate policy changes that would give players complete freedom for outside activities. But the real kicker was this. While executives panicked about saving their careers, the boycott numbers exploded past 500,000 signatures. Families, friend groups, and entire fan communities were walking away from the WNBA faster than anyone could count. Social media showed parents explaining to confused kids why they could not watch their favorite players anymore. The assistant commissioner who whispered to Silver reportedly told him the legal department was reviewing whether player restriction policies violated existing contracts. Translation: the league might face lawsuits from its own stars. Meanwhile, inside Indiana Fever headquarters, something beautiful was happening. Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexi Hull sat together watching their phones buzz with constant updates. The boycott numbers kept climbing: 600,000, 700,000, 850,000. Fans were not just supporting these three players, they were taking back their entire league from incompetent leadership. Clark stared at her screen showing over 1 million people standing with her and whispered words that will go down in WNBA history. "They are doing this for us." Sophie grabbed her hand and said, "Then we stay strong." Lexi hugged both of them and added, "Together." You see, three teammates who got threatened for living their lives had become symbols of everything right about women's basketball. But here's what makes this story absolutely incredible. The fan uprising was not just about Clark's golf restrictions anymore. People were fighting for the principle that athletes deserve basic human freedoms. They were rejecting a commissioner who treated superstars worse than bench players with actual disciplinary problems. And then the numbers became impossible to ignore. When boycott organizers included family members and friend groups, the total reached over 1.5 million people walking away from the WNBA in 2026. Entire households were canceling league subscriptions. Youth basketball programs were reconsidering their WNBA partnerships. The economic damage was spreading faster than anyone anticipated. Let me show you how completely Engelbert lost control. Her own employees started questioning whether they wanted to work for someone who could destroy the league's relationship with fans in less than a week. Office morale collapsed as workers realized their paychecks depended on the success that their boss was actively sabotaging. Clark's teammates across the entire league began reaching out privately to show support. Veterans who normally stayed quiet about league politics started asking tough questions about leadership priorities. The player unity that Engelbert feared was becoming reality because of her own terrible decisions. Not only that, but international fans joined the boycott movement. Clark's global popularity meant overseas supporters were watching this crisis unfold in real time. European basketball fans started canceling plans to attend WNBA games during summer visits to America. The damage was becoming worldwide. Here's the part that shows how badly leadership miscalculated everything. Clark, Sophie, and Lexi were not troublemakers or diva athletes demanding special treatment. They were hardworking players who wanted normal lives outside of basketball. Engelbert turned reasonable people into symbols of resistance by overreaching beyond all common sense. The three players made a pact that sent shivers through league headquarters. If any of them faced suspension or termination for the boycott support, all three would consider their options, including playing overseas. Losing the league's biggest stars would complete the financial destruction that Engelbert started. But wait, there's one final twist that nobody saw coming. As the boycott numbers continued climbing, other professional sports leagues started watching nervously. Player unions across different sports realized that commissioner overreach could happen anywhere. The WNBA crisis was becoming a cautionary tale about respecting athlete freedoms. By the end of this insane week, Cathy Engelbert had accomplished something truly remarkable. She united players, fans, sponsors, and media members against her leadership in record time. The boycott became bigger than basketball. It became about basic respect for human dignity in professional sports. If you are enjoying this content and want to see more coverage of the WNBA drama that mainstream media won't touch, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which story you want covered next.